Hello and welcome to the Punter, the show that likes to keep you up to date with all the sports betting action across the sporting calendar. For the first half of tonight's show, we're going to be concentrating on football. We'll be taking a look at all the latest markets when it comes to the Premier League, both at the top and at the bottom. We'll be delving into the Championship as well. And we've one or two special bets to take a look at. I'm pleased to say that Rory Jiwani of Stan James is with me in the studio. Rory, very good evening to you.
And to you.
What was the weekend like for you? Because televised games over the course of the weekend, wins for Manchester City and Arsenal, and you were top price about Arsenal at Anfield, of course the come from behind win for Manchester United. I would suspect that maybe the punters got the best of the battle.
Yeah, marginally. I think the Arsenal one, we were a silly price. I think we were about 15-4 in the end, Arsenal, but we'd committed to be top industry price Arsenal, so we had to keep going up. There was plenty of money for Liverpool though, so it wasn't actually that bad a result. You'd have thought that being top price would be a bad result, but Liverpool were very well backed on Sunday, so that was okay. United, Southampton, we really thought we were going to get a great result there, especially when Van Persie missed that penalty, but it wasn't to be. And yes, in play we would have. Yeah, that would have cost us quite a bit, because it always happens. It's inevitable when you have the big sides like your Uniteds and Cities, like City on the last game of last season. They always manage to find a way of coming back, and punters know that.
No doubt about that. Manchester United did come back, and it was a good Sunday, you would have thought, for the punting public. Let's see how the weekend results affected the race for the title and the title odds. Let's hear from Nigel Seeley. The Bet Butler is with us. Nigel, Chelsea weren't in action, of course, in terms of the league, and I guess for wins for Manchester United and Manchester City, there's not too much change at the top.
Not really, Dan. I mean, Manchester City still hold on to favouritism at a very short price. And to be fair, Stan James are going quite a big price here, Manchester City. If you fancy Man City to win the Premier League title, that's where you want to be heading. I think Manchester United have thrown down a massive marker, even early doors in that game, to come back and Robin Van Persie to hit the ground running with 3 goals in that game and a game before. I think Man United and Stan James are going very, very short. They're going 7-4 Manchester United. Yeah, you can get around about 11-5 other bookmakers, and they're going 7-2 Chelsea. What Stan James is saying here is this is not a one-team race. And what the conclusion is that Manchester City are certainly beatable for this campaign. 11-8 is the best you can get. I think that represents really poor value if you fancy Manchester City, and Stan James here 11-8 is the best price, and I would take them on as well. Arsenal, big run. They were the big movers of the weekend. Some bookies were 25-1 into 14-1. Cazorla looks a player. They look defensively strong against Steve Bold, their best acquisition of the summer. They look the team to move 14-1, and already, as you can stand, is already a 4-runner race as far as I'm concerned.
What about at the bottom? Rory, you always get one or two teams that start well and then struggle. West Brom, I think we all predicted to struggle. They have started well. West Ham, of course, won for the second time at the weekend. And when you look towards the bottom of the table, well, Liverpool in the bottom 3 at the moment. I would imagine that there's been a slight shake-up in the odds when it comes to the teams that might go down.
Yeah, I mean, Southampton are now odds on to go down. And it's a bit unfortunate they've just got a really tough start. They've had City and United. They've got Arsenal to come quite soon. But I think they've shown enough already to that they're not easy beats by any stretch. They gave City a run for their money. They were ahead against United at Old Trafford. So I think odds on Southampton is a bit short personally. But that is more reflecting of the weight of money that's gone on them. And then the other ones at short prices are Reading, Norwich, Wigan now 7-4. Bad result in our book. We really don't want Wigan to go down, or Aston Villa, who are now 5-2. They were 7-8-1 at the start of the season. But the likes of Swansea have started very well. I can't see them being in the shake-up. QPR and West Ham possibly could get dragged into it. I think QPR are looking a little bit ominous. Things are not looking great there at the moment.
Let's get back to the Butler. Let's find out how the odds are shaping up when it comes to the relegation market. Nigel.
Yeah, obviously Southampton head this market now pretty clearly. They were vying favourites with Reading. They're now odds on with Stan James 10-11. People have always said to you, look at the fixture list. Southampton got some 2 fixtures in time. They play Arsenal and Liverpool, I think, in their next couple of fixtures. And people will say to you, well, let's back them now at 10-11 because they'll be 4-6 or 4-7. Bookies get the fixture list as well. They know who they're playing. These prices are all over a long, long season, not the next 2 matches. But Southampton, the favourites, 10-11. Reading 6-5. I think in the opening games they've shown enough about them. Norwich, they're the team I feel fear. 5-4, I think they would be sucked into it. Wigan at 7-4, I think they've got enough about them to go down. Aston Villa, in depth, have they got the quality to survive? I think they probably have. In Paul Lambert, they've got a good manager. But don't rule out these teams. Don't rule out West Brom. Don't rule out Swansea yet. We're only 3 games in. Remember what Blackpool did at the start of their campaign months of seasons ago, and remember what other teams have done. They've started off very well, and they've got drawn into this race as the season goes on. So even though they might be sitting pretty on 7 points, doesn't mean they're out of it yet. Southampton are favourites 10-11. 2 tough fixtures, expecting that to shorten, but not as much as the punters are expecting.
I know that we sound like West Brom haters on this particular channel because we've all tipped them to go down and also for Steve Clarke to struggle. And it's interesting what the Butler was saying because Roberto Di Matteo, when he was in charge of West Brom, they started pretty well. They won it at the Emirates Stadium, but he was still sacked, I think, just after Christmas. So it can happen. When it comes to the sack race, obviously Nigel Atkins is going to be under pressure for the same reasons we've talked about, but does Andre Villas-Boas and Brendan Rodgers come into it when it comes to the first manager to leave, perhaps, Rory?
Atkins is the favourite. Now, there's been all sorts of speculation. Harry Redknapp at Southampton has been one of the rumours going around, which is a non-runner as far as I'm concerned. I know people criticise bookies for saying we're trying to get managers sacked. We're not. I mean, it's just one of our most popular markets. Punters love betting on who's going to be the next manager to go. Atkins is short price. I think Mark Hughes is the one, personally, I think might be in danger. Brendan Rodgers hasn't been there long. OK, they got it wrong with the strikers at transfer window. AVB, negative substitution on Saturday, getting castigated by the fans already. But you wouldn't have thought that such a quick appointment made so recently, I wouldn't have thought that Rodgers or AVB are under pressure yet. Obviously, if results continue to be poor, then maybe. But I think the ones to look at are Mark Hughes and possibly Sam Allardyce. A great win on Saturday against Fulham. I think he needed that because there was a lot of speculation last week that he'd be the next to go. Yeah,
Sam Allardyce was at the top of the market at one stage, certainly last week. Butler, how do we price it up now?
Well, the favourite is Nigel Atkins here in the market, and the reason why is because unofficially he was been told 3 or 4 times last season that he was under pressure, and he managed. He got them up. I mean, this time around, and look at their fixture. They've got some tough starts. But you know, Harry Redknapp, the figure of Harry Redknapp is looming behind every one of these managers. Not only Southampton, he's there for QPR. Mark Hughes goes, and Harry Redknapp's linked. At West Ham, he's linked as well. Allardyce was 7-4 into 8-1. It's quite funny, really, that Andy Carroll could save Sam Allardyce's West Ham career at an early stage, and it could be the end of Brendan Rodgers as far as the St James are concerned. Into 5-1. I think it's a bit of an overreaction, really. We've got a long way to go, long season. I think he's going to have to be given time because he's trying to do something different there. AVB, if I was asked which one would last longer, I'd have to go Brendan Rodgers because they're bought into the theory of the Swansea side of football. I think AVB's under big pressure. 6-1 here. Tony Pulis 12-1 and Martin Yole 16. Not for me. Nigel Atkins now 9-4 favourite. But this market, we've only been 3 weeks in. We've already had 3 different favourites, and that trend will continue as the season goes on.
Yeah, there's always a bit of a knee-jerk when it comes to results at the weekend to that particular market. And likewise, when it comes to the top goal scorer market, we talked about the Premier League outrights. Well, nothing's really changed there. But when it comes to the top goal scorer in the English top flight, we have seen changes, not so much in personnel, but in the odds, because Robin van Persie, of course, is now a lot shorter than he was a month or so ago, Rory.
It certainly is. I think it was 8-1 at the start of the season. I think he's 11-4 now. So obviously that hat-trick, despite one of the worst penalties I've ever seen. But it just shows that, you know, quality players can fit into a side very quickly. Obviously, Wayne Rooney is on the sidelines at the moment, but Van Persie looks to be the one to be leading the line this season. He's going to score a lot of goals, injury permitting, which has been a problem. Before last season, he was quite injury prone at Arsenal. Then Carlos Tevez, he scored at the weekend. He's back in the fold at Man City. Obviously, with Sergio Aguero injured, he's guaranteed more game time. Fernando Torres is our big loser in the book. He's the one we don't want to win. Obviously, Chelsea didn't play at the weekend, but I think he's going to score plenty of goals this season, and it looks like a 3-horse race at the moment.
Yeah, the big names are dominating the market, but Michu it is that's got 4 goals alongside Robin van Persie. Surely he figures as well, doesn't he, Butler, when it comes to the top end of the betting?
There is absolutely no way that Michu will be the top goal scorer. I really cannot see it. I just cannot see it whatsoever. I think it's the top. The class will come to the top. It'll rise when Robin van Persie 11-4. All that pressure, £24 million move. move. 4 goals in 2 games. He's just basically shown you what a player he is. 1 chance, 1 goal. Carlos Tevez, 6-1. He's the man who's capitalising on Aguero's misfortune, as Rory alluded to there. Fernando Torres, 7-1, looking sharp, but just always an injury doubt about them. Aguero, 14-1. He may be too far behind by the times. He could be 8 behind Van Persie, and regardless of what that kind of goals, I just think that's too much to catch. Wayne Rooney, will he get in the side? Suarez, you could not back him with anyone's money the way he's playing. And Mario Balotelli, not for me. Already it's a 3-runner race, as Rory alluded to. Van Persie, Tevez and Torres. And at the prices, I like Torres.
What price you lay me Mitchie then, Butler?
Realistically, he's got to be a 33-1 shot. No each way, though.
Fair enough. This is it. You can never see a player from a club like that maybe topping the list, but he might get top 4. Maybe.
Absolutely. I seem to remember Marcus Stewart scoring a hatful of goals for Ipswich when they were up a few seasons back. So it's definitely possible. I think Ricky Lambert has scored a couple of goals already for Southampton, so you just never know.
Let's drop down a league. The Championship, we always knew it was going to be tough. 1 or 2 teams that we felt would go well here in the studio aren't going so well, Bolton amongst them. It's Blackpool that lead. Blackburn, much derided Blackburn, or certainly the manager is by their own supporters, but they're scoring goals, playing well. The signings seems to have worked. When it comes to the market, how's it shaping up?
Well, Blackburn favourites now. Obviously, that signing of Jordan Rhodes was a real eye-catcher for more reasons than one. I mean, the amount of money, and he's a player going places, and Blackburn in their current situation you wouldn't have thought would be on the agenda, but he's there, and yeah, look, they're going very well, it has to be said. Next up, Leicester, who I'm always a bit negative about, just because I think last season they had a very strong squad but never really produced. Leeds 8-1, they've made signings, but again, I'm not sure. Bolton still 8-1, obviously. They're the big losers for us. We can't be offering big prices against Bolton, not in a division as close as the Championship as well. OK, they've only scored 4, they're only on 4 points, but they're only 5 points off the lead, so still a very, very long way to go. At the prices, I think Forest at 10-1 is not a bad shout. They've spent well, the signings seem to have fitted in well, and they're very near the top. So, but it's the Championship, and everyone beats each other in the Championship. We all know how competitive it is. Yeah,
Bolton towards the bottom of the table. I've backed Bolton. I think the Butler has as well, but we're not giving up hope just yet, Nigel, are we?
Certainly not, but I saw some betting that the next manager to lose his job in this division, and Owen Coyle was the favourite. It shows you the pressure he's under here. But it shows you the nature of this competition. We've had 4 weeks in, 4 different favourites. Blackburn now, Leicester have been favourites, Bolton have been favourites. And I just think, I just really, really do think there's value all the way through. You can see it 7-1, 8-1, 8-1, 8-1, 9-1, 10. Very, very competitive. I think Blackpool at 9-1 will make some big part of it. Forest here 10-1. The only thing about Forest, their league form looks pretty good, but the way they were torn apart by Wigan was a bit of a concern for me. Anyone back them to win it. But realistically, it's not a big price that someone on this label doesn't win it and someone who isn't quoted. Just shows you how competitive it is at the moment. But again, don't rule out Bolton. 8-1 now, 6-1 at the start, but we're early days in. The only one out of these that I cannot have, and I never had them at all, was Leicester. I really, really can't have them for the Championship. I think they're a great lay at 8-1, and I think they should be down the bottom rather than second favourites.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that market develops over the course of the next few fixtures when it comes to the Championship. Much more to come on the Punter tonight. We'll be delving into 1 or 2 football specials. We'll be looking at the Johnstone's Paint Trophy fixtures as well. Plus, we'll be talking tennis a little bit later on. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Punter as we endeavour to point you in the right direction when it comes to the midweek football. And we can move on to the action that comes your way tonight. It's the Johnstone's Paint Trophy. Punter's starved of league action, of course, because we've got World Cup qualifiers on the way this weekend and indeed next midweek. So Punters have got to delve into this competition. Always difficult to know exactly if managers, players are going to take this seriously. It makes it harder for the punters, makes it harder for the odds compilers as well, I guess, Rory.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the way we've gone is basing it on league form.
Yeah, I guess you have.
Pretty much. But there are some interesting prices there, and there's definitely value there. And even based on league form so far, I think there's some. We'll obviously pick out some matches in a minute, but there's definitely value there for punters, and there's some prices which are a bit bigger than I expected, I have to say.
Coventry are interesting. They take on Burton. Burton, of course, knocked Leicester out of the Capital One Cup, which is obviously a class above when it comes to cup competitions. I mean, can they do likewise? Coventry have had an awful start to the season. They've sacked their manager, as we know. I don't think they've won yet in League One. Are they right for an upset again, do you think? I mean, are Burton priced accordingly or otherwise?
Well, Coventry are 4-9, which, I mean, the way they're playing, no manager, you know, let's use every cliche, the rudderless ship, etc., etc. I think, you know, you don't want to be backing that at 4-9. The draw 100-30, yeah, maybe. Burton 11-2. Why not? I mean, as you say, they've got that form from the League Cup, Capital One League Cup. Could be an upset. You just never know. Coventry at the Ricoh, it's just a vacuum of a stadium because it's very, very rarely full, and I think, you know, they feel a bit of pressure in there. So why not go for the 11-2 upset?
You wouldn't really want to take the 4-9 about Coventry, would you, Butler?
Certainly not. I mean, Coventry are a team to oppose at all costs. The only good thing, if you are going to take the 4-9, is they're obviously a team playing for a caretaker manager, and Richard Shaw wants to win it. There's linked with the Oxford United manager taking over the position there, Chris Wilder. And at 4-9, 2-1 on these kind of prices, there has to be better bets tonight. I think the draw here, I know Rory said St James were 130, now into 3-1. It may have been pushed out to 130 with Burton there 21-4, 11-2 to me and the guys in the street there. But I think the draw makes appeal here because Coventry are the draw specialists in that league. They draw an awful lot of games, and really with the nature of this cup, I think if you take on favourites, it's not a bad thing. So I'm going to go for the draw at 3-1, and if you can get a bit of 130, it's a little bit of a Brucey bonus.
Yeah, 1 or 2 price changes on that Stan James coupon. Obviously, Punter's having a bit of a go with team news flying in. What about Portsmouth versus Bournemouth? I mean, I've actually backed Bournemouth to win their division. Portsmouth have had a poor start. Bournemouth can score goals, but they can't win at the moment, Rory.
Yeah, it's the battle of the South Coast strugglers in that division. It's the Redknapp derby, as some would call it. Portsmouth are the outsiders in this. I mean, there's not much in it really. Portsmouth 9-5. I've got here Bournemouth 7-5. I think the draw might be the way to go in this, and 9-4. But it's difficult to say, and it is a derby match as well. So throw that in. Maybe a no bet, but if you're going to bet on this one, maybe the draw at 9-4.
Maybe the draw, Butler.
I like the draw. I'm all over the draw. Both clubs need the readies, so they're not going to be resting it. Portsmouth need the readies more than me. That tells you how bad they need the readies. But let me tell you something. 9-5 Portsmouth, 7-5 Bournemouth. The draw 9-4. They met earlier in the season. It was 1-1. Bournemouth have drawn 3 of their last 4 games. 1-1. 1-1 at 6-1 with Stan James, or 11-2. That kind of price would be my bet.
Let's take a look at Southend versus Wimbledon. Again, this is a tough one to call for me because they both started pretty poorly. If you had to have a bet in this one, Rory?
Again, the draw. I think the draw represents value here at 3-1. Southend a bit short for me at 8-15, I have to say. AFC Wimbledon, whether they can win on their travels, and it's a big price for them to win away, but if you're going to have a bet, if you sort of force me to have a bet in this, it would be the draw.
Yeah, Southend did well last season, nearly got out of League Two, but maybe their chance was last campaign and they've struggled to keep the momentum going. Butler, how do you see this one?
It hasn't started off well for either of these sides, and obviously if you're backing the odds on, it's not going to be the greatest of strategies, but I think Southend tonight have got too much for AFC Wimbledon. AFC Wimbledon very good at home, score lots of goals, away from home dreadful. 9-2. Not as much for me to entice them. The draw looks big again at 3-1, but I don't fancy AFC Wimbledon. Again, I've got to go with the draw at 3-1 purely on a value situation.
Well, there's nothing wrong with pumping up the draws because if you play the doubles and the trebles, you only need 1 double to cop generally. Let's take a look at one other game. Northampton versus MK Dons. We picked this one out. MK Dons, for once, I think, ended a game with 11 men at the weekend. They usually get a player sent off. They take on Northampton. I'd like to think that MK Dons, having won at the weekend, might be able to keep the momentum going. I know it's a different competition. They're in a league above. Surely MK Dons we can trust at a shortish price.
4-6. Too short for me, I'd say. Northampton, I don't think they're playing all that badly, and there's a bit of a local derby element there as well.
Yeah,
I think so. I wouldn't fancy MK Dons at 4-6. Again, I'm not sure about the draw either. I'd be tempted to go for the home win, actually. I don't know. I just feel that Northampton aren't a bad side, and MK Dons, they could struggle tonight.
Home win for Rory, taking a bit of a flyer. Butler, how about you?
Rory is a racing man, and he's shown exactly why he's a racing man now. I'll tell you what, MK Dons, I know they're League Division, I know it's 4-6. They were, I think, even money. I'm not quite sure what Stan James opened it. They're the best back team in the day here. The reason why is Northampton have played 3 matches in 6 days. They got humiliated at home to Wolves in the Cup last week. The very small squad, and the manager Aidan Boyford said he's resting more or less the whole team today. We do know MK Dons will rest a few players. 8-11 is gone. 4-6 does look very short, but bear in mind they were even money today. They have been the best back team of the day, and the bookies are hoping for a home win.
That's the Johnson's Paint Trophy action. Of course, it kicks off very shortly indeed. So good luck with your bets. Good luck with your coupon tonight on that particular cup competition. One player who will never be anywhere near this particular competition is Cristiano Ronaldo. But he is in the newspapers at the moment. He's making their headlines because apparently he's not very happy with all that cash he's earning at Real Madrid and still scoring for fun. So many of the bookmakers are speculating where he might go next. First of all, do we really think he's going to leave, Rory?
Who knows? I mean, it's bizarre. He didn't celebrate because he said he was unhappy professionally, and I don't think I'd be too unhappy professionally if I was on 200 grand a week. But there you go. I don't know. I find it hard to believe Manchester City are heading the market. I find it hard to believe he would go to Manchester City, given his Manchester United past.
Does that really matter these days?
I know. I like to think it does, but maybe I'm a bit of a romantic in that sense. I was thinking Robin van Persie wouldn't go to United, but there you go. I think Paris Saint-Germain might be the way to go, but I find it hard to believe, even though he's very unhappy, that he'd really want to leave Real Madrid at this moment in time.
Incidentally, there's been a whole manner of price changes on this market over the course of the day, because when we were talking about it before we came on air, Manchester City were the favourites. Not anymore. Butler.
Yeah, Paris Saint-Germain have overtaken Manchester City in the favourites in this market at 3-1. I mean, I realistically can't see Cristiano Ronaldo. I see him throwing his toys out of his pram, trying to get the running that Eto'o's on with the Russians, trying to get a bigger pay deal. I don't believe he'll go anywhere. But if you do believe he's going to go, and he is depressed, 220 grand a week, depressed, crying there. He got his pick on any senorita in Madrid, and he wants to go to Mossad, nick his own moves. Oh my God! You've got to go 7-2 Man City, 5-1 Manchester United, and 3-1 Paris Saint-Germain. I tell you what, he will not be going anywhere. 6-1 Chelsea, 8-1 Juventus. This is a Juventus side that couldn't even get Robin van Persie. They couldn't get Dimitar Berbatov. He chose Fulham. Where are you going to get Cristiano Ronaldo from? 3-1 Paris Saint-Germain. I even know they got the money. I don't think they've got the money to get him, have they?
They probably have. Whether we want to go or not is a different kettle of fish. I think he'll probably end up staying, but you never know, do you? We've seen it time and time again. One player who has moved, sort of, he was released at the end of the previous season from his club, Manchester United, was Michael Owen. He's finally found a club. I get the feeling that he didn't really want to go to Stoke, because Stoke were the first and maybe only club to put an offer for him, but he's rocked up at the Britannia Stadium. Nonetheless, is that a good fit, first of all, for Michael Owen?
I'm not sure. I was reading something today where Michael Kitely, who's just joined Stoke from Wolves in the summer, was talking about he's never run so much in his entire life. Now, I don't think that really fits well with a striker in the twilight of his career who's got a history of dodgy hamstrings and knees and whatever. I think it's great though, to see Michael Owen back, no doubt about it. He's a great striker, but I'm not sure Stoke's the fit.
Let's take a look at one or two of the specialty markets we've got with Michael Owen, or that are available. Butler, first of all, how many times he will play in the Premier League? Explain this one to us.
Yeah, this is a market to come up with how many over and under the appearances he makes. And the bookies have gone over 15.5. So if he plays 16 times for Stoke this season, it's deemed as a winner. Now, I'll tell you what, under 16 here, for 5-6, is an absolute belter. Them old legs, the old hamstrings going, run on that pitch. He hasn't played for ages. Being a bit rusty, got to get match fitness. It could take him 4 or 5 games to get into the pace of the Premier League. So he's going to miss at least 5. And then you've got the injury factor as well. And then all the physical challenges are going to be as a centre forward for Stoke, but everyone wants to beat up Stoke, don't they? They want to give them a bit of their own medicine back. Under 16 here at 5-6. What a cracking bet that is.
Yeah, only played once, I think, for Manchester United last season. 11 prior to that. I think unders is a good one. What about goals? How many goals do we think he'll score, Rory? I mean, if he's not going to play,
he's not going to score very much.
Score, is he? I think the
hardly...
under and over line here is about 3.5. I think. I mean,
wow. Yeah, for a side that relies on physical strength and big centre forward, I mean, they could go. I mean, I'm a Watford fan, so when it comes to big man, little man front pairings, we've seen plenty of them at the Vic down the years. But yeah, you'd have to have him playing off Crouch, I suppose. But I just don't see how it's going to work.
What's the line here, Butler?
Well, the line here is very low, obviously. I mean, but I'm sure that people will be backing it. Over 4.5 goals. I mean, scoring 5 goals from Michael Owen. I just don't think he's going to get enough games, and I think the injury factor is going to be a huge thing. And when he does get a chance, I think it's going to be the last 20, 15 minutes of a match to try to get off the pitch and do something. And, you know, Stoke are going to be underdogs in the majority of the games they play. So I just don't think he's going to get any goals, and personally I'll just go for the under appearances, because when he does come on, he's going to get 15 minutes to get 4 goals in virtually all the games. He's not going to start many, is he? So, but I think the best play will be under 15.5 appearances and leave the goals alone.
Yeah, I think I'd go with that. I think I'd go under on the goals as well. That's the football. Plenty of specials when it comes to Michael Owen available. Let's move on to the golf, because we had Rory McIlroy winning yesterday. It was a Labour Day finish in America, the Deutsche Bank Championship, in which Rory came from behind to beat Louis Oosthuizen by a stroke. Another win on the PGA Tour for Rory. He is still the world #1, and he will lead the European Challenge, Rory, when it comes to the Ryder Cup. We heard the American wildcards announced today: Dustin Johnson, Jim Furyk, Brandt Snedeker and Steve Stricker. But even though it is in America, you feel that Europeans are pretty strong at the moment.
They are strong, and they've got experience over the Americans. I think there's only one rookie in the Nicholas Colsaert.
Yeah.
I think he's the only rookie in the European side. But on home soil is a big advantage. I remember the last one on home soil 4 years ago, and the rookies for America really stepped up, especially in the singles. I think JB Holmes just played out of his skin, and that proved decisive. Rory McIlroy is in great form, but I don't think match play brings out the best in him. He didn't have a great Ryder Cup 2 years ago, whereas players like Graham McDowell and Ian Poulter really bring it on for the Ryder Cup. It really appeals to the way they play the game. So there's interesting bets here. I mean, we go 4-6 USA, 6-4 Europe, 10-1 the tie. I think the tie is always a pretty good shout with this, because it is so competitive, and I think the Ryder Cup as well is designed for in-play betting. I can't think of a much better sporting event for betting in play.
Butler?
Totally agree, Roy, on this one. I think 4-6, 6-4. I think is a market you're going to get 2 action. I think you're going to get the sentimental money coming in for Europe, the patriotic support. I think you're going to get the big hitters coming from the Americans. And as a bookie, you'll have the draw running for it, which is an absolute perfect situation, because you know at some stage in this Ryder Cup the draw is going to be shorter than 10-1. I also think it's a battle of the 2 captains. And personally, I think Davis Love has got that bit about the team. He's a likeable guy. I know Isabel's a bit different, but I think he's a likeable guy as well. But I think Love knows the Americans through and through. He's an American man straight away, knows exactly what the players want, know what to do, and I think that little gives him the edge. Home advantage is the same, but I think what a great position if you're Stan James or any other bookmaker. You can back the USA at 4-6, Europe at 6-4, and cheer on the draw, because I think you're going to get great value at some stage in this competition.
Yeah, you do get the feeling it is going to be very, very tight when the USA take on Europe. That's the golf and the football, and it's here that we say goodbye to Rory Jiwani. Rory, many thanks for popping in.
Thank you.
After the break, Rory will be replaced by Marc Blair, who's going to be talking US Open tennis, all the best bets when it comes to all the latest action at Flushing Meadows.
Countdown.
Welcome back to the Punter. It is time to talk tennis and, of course, the final Grand Slam events of the calendar year, the US Open. I'm pleased to say that Marc Blair is joining me in the studio. Marc, you've been a regular on Skype when it comes to talking to us about tennis betting over the course of the last few months. When it comes to the US Open, is this an easier one for punters? Is it harder? Because I always feel that players like Rafa Nadal, he's probably played his best tennis earlier in the season. Some players play a little bit better towards the back end of the season. It's been a long, hard season for many of them, and I guess punters have to factor things like that in. Generally, is it a good one or a bad one for punters?
I think it's a good one in that you've got a year's worth of form to go on. They are coming to the end of their tether a bit. Players like Rafa Nadal, who really go, full out on the clay court season, they're going to suffer, and he's not here. He's got some really bad knee injuries. I think it's tendonitis. But generally, you've got a lot of form to go on, and once you're past the first week where there's a lot of funny stuff going on, it's quite a good tournament to bet on.
When I look at tournaments like Wimbledon and indeed Roland Garros for that matter, there are some players you can strike through straight away because they're just not going to perform on the surface. Is that the case when it comes to the US Open?
Very much so. Some of these clay court rats, as they're called, players like Jose Acasuso, and the Italian Villandri, they're purely turn up to pick up their $12,000 or whatever it is.
First round knockout
and
pay.
You know, the odds on 3-0 to the favourite are just, you know, very low, 1 to 3. So yeah, those players are now gone, and you've got the best players in the world left in both sides of the draw.
Yeah, some fascinating matches coming up over the course of late tonight and into the early hours. Of course, the first that we're going to look at here is Tipsarevic versus Kohlschreiber. I just had a brief look at the head-to-head, 2 apiece. Is that about right? Is this going to be a tight game, do you think?
It's going to be a tight game. Tipsarevic is rightly favourite. I make him about 60%, and Tipsarevic is a legitimate top 10 player. I expect to see him at the end of the season event at the O2. But Kohlschreiber is possibly underestimated by the market. I think you can see odds of around 7 to 4, 2.8 in decimals, and I think that represents slight value to the punter.
Let's get the match odds. Nigel Seeley with me, the Bet Butler. Let's take a look at this one, Nigel.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a difficult one because obviously Tipsarevic has lived in the shadow of Djokovic for all his career, the Serbian. He's a number 2 player, top 10 player, good player in his right. Only really kicked on in the last 3 or 4 years. He's been a good player, but average around the low 50s. Kohlschreiber, on the other hand, is another one. He's been around for years and just gone under the radar. So these are 2 real top sort of 20 players who've been consistent at a level, but nobody really knows them on a household level. The trouble for Kohlschreiber, for me, is that he's just come on the back of an epic game against John Isner, where he was underdog well. He'd come through that game, he's just got through, and every time in tennis, I always see someone who's risen their level so much, they come down to earth with a bang. And that's a strategy that you would always prove to be quite popular here. Purely from value, 13-8 Kohlschreiber looks the value. 2-1 to Tipsarevic looks a little bit short. But the reason why it is, it's because of that factor. And if you are playing this game tonight, bear that in mind. So I think this is a game to watch. One thing I personally do think there'll be a lot of games in the match. And I think instead of choosing who will win, I think maybe you're having a fixed odds bet on over 37.5 games, or over, if it was 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, 4 sets of 6-4, it'll be 40 games. So that would be my strategy. But on the match itself, the reason why this 13-8 does appear value is because he's on the back of a massive 5-setter against a man who was fancied to do very, very well.
Yeah, John Isner took him all the way, and I think the previous round as well, he had to get through 5 sets. I mean, that's got to be a factor, hasn't it?
It's certainly a factor. I think they over-egg it a bit, especially when you get to Grand Slam tournaments where the players are having at least one day in between matches. And if you compare that to the regular tour, the Masters Series, the 250s and the 500s, they are playing every day for 1 week straight. It might only be 3 sets, but I don't buy into this tiredness factor too much, particularly when you played a player like John Isner, where every point is very short.
It's not going to be a long rally.
No.
Let's take a look at the set betting, shall we? We're predicting 1 or 2 games in this one, Butler. So how about the set betting market?
Yeah, I'm not going to be, it's not a great surprise to say I'm going to predict the guy. Tipsarevic has got a very big serve. Kohlschreiber's got a big serve, very awkward. Like Mark would say, I'm sure he's a left-hander, which makes it very, very difficult for Tipsarevic to get it back here. Third, I think I like the 3-2 either side. 6-1 Tipsarevic, 3-2. 3-2 Kohlschreiber, 8-1. The 2 of them combined works out around about a 3-1 shot. I'll definitely be taking that rather than 3-0 Tipsarevic here at 7-4. Very, very, very short odds here. Or 3-0 Kohlschreiber at 6-1. So personally, for my opinion, I'm going for 3-2 either way and cheer on a late night and lots of games.
What do we think, Mark, when it comes to set betting in this one? What would you go for?
Tipsarevic, Kohlschreiber. Kohlschreiber's known for some really long-lasting matches. There was one instance where he played Roebuck years and years ago at the Australian Open, where it went to 20-18 in the final set. His serve doesn't look that big, but he does have high stats on both first and second serves. So yes, I agree with Nigel. I think this could be one for the overs and one for the plus on the game handicaps.
Yeah, check out the handicap betting that's available as well for this one. Let's move on to another intriguing clash tonight. It's Juan Martín del Potro against Andy Roddick. Is this going to be Roddick's last US Open, Mark?
This is certainly going to be his last US Open either way, whether he wins this match or not. This game, it's got all the markings of a classic. Last match on the Arthur Ashe Stadium tonight. Patriotic support for Roddick. I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately.
What do we make about patriotic support? Because obviously when it comes to football, and punters will look at home fixtures and the odds are weighted in home team's favour for whatever reason. The stats tell us that's the way it should be. Does it matter at all in individual tennis? I mean, I'll take the Davis Cup point to a certain extent, but just because Roddick's going to be cheered on by most of the galleries here, most of the fans, does that mean that the odds should change ever so slightly or not?
Home advantage in tennis, it's a tricky one. There is certainly a home advantage, but the market normally overreacts to it, particularly when you've got a guy like Milos Raonic, a Canadian, playing at the US Open. It is basically home advantage for him, but the market doesn't pick up on that kind of thing. And then you've got a player like Roddick, where the home advantage might be a factor, might be overcooked a bit. Plus the fact that when you've got Wimbledon, there is a certain effect on the market. The patriotic punting does have an effect. When it's in America, the betting markets in America don't have the force that they do over here, purely because in most parts of America, betting on sport is illegal.
It's certainly legal here, thankfully. Butler, let's get some prices on this one. How do we price the matchup between these two?
Yeah, not so very, very short, Del Potro. And actually, I thought it would be a lot shorter than the 2-7 available with Stan James. I thought it would be around about 5-1 on shot. I think this Roddick 5-2 is really exactly what Mark said there about the patriotic support, about people wanting to do well. But I think it's all about the first set. I think if Roddick can get off to a good start and win the first set, great. If he loses the first set, I don't think he's got absolutely any chance whatsoever. So I'll come on to my strategy of how to play this game after this game. But I think in running, you've got to look at the first set. I think Del Potro is not as good as he was when he won this competition 2 years ago. Was it 3 years ago? Mark again will tell my old brain's going a little bit there. But I think he's almost there. He's almost to that level he was. And we saw in the Olympics how well he played and how well he always took Federer there. And at 2-7, if you asked me to price this up before the competition and before Murray's went, you would be about 5-on, 6-on in my opinion. And I think 2-7, even it's short, I think represents fantastic value. I can't see anything other than a Del Potro win.
Del Potro 2-7, Roddick 5-2. Where's the value, Mark? Where's your bets on this one?
Well, my numbers point towards Del Potro about 85%, which would point to a value on Del Potro, whether it's on the set betting or the game handicap. I'm not going to be doing that tonight because Del Potro, he hasn't really faced anyone of note yet, and there were a few mutterings last week of a wrist injury, which he's had a lot of trouble with in the past, and that's the reason I'm going to sit out of this one, possibly betting the overs.
Possibly betting the overs. What about the set betting, Butler?
Well, I'm going to go totally against Mark on this one here. I really am. I'm going to be definitely getting involved. I won't be sitting out at all because I think there's value. I think Del Potro at 5-4 to win 3-0 was fantastic value. And also, if you back the overs, over total games at 39.5, maybe 38.5, you could still win 3-0 Del Potro here because we know how big serve Roddick's got. We know all he has really now. He put his under Larry's Stefanki. He built his game around a little bit of the backhand, a bit of returning serve, but it's all about serve for him. And we could be in for a match where it could be 7-6, 7-6, 7-6. So you could get the best of both worlds. You could back Del Potro to win 3-0 and the overs. I take this point of the overs, but I really can't see anything other than a Del Potro win, despite any rumours of injury, because I think at the moment the man is on a different level to Roddick.
Yeah, Del Potro to win in straight sets could be the way to go. The overs could be the way to go with Mark. We've got more with Mark on some fascinating matches after the break, including Andy Murray's clash against Marin Cilic. Much more tennis betting chat coming your way. Welcome back to the Punter, the final part, as we keep talking tennis and hopefully point you in the right direction when it comes, as far as we're concerned, the biggest match of the evening session. It is, of course, Andy Murray. Plenty will be getting involved. Plenty will be backing Murray regardless, I would suspect. He's up against Marin Cilic. Marc Blair is with me in the studio. Mark, I mean, Andy Murray, we're going to get support for Andy Murray regardless here. I mean, will Cilic give him any sort of problem, do you think?
He can be a very problematic player. He's got a big first serve, and he's not one of these big servers that don't have any return game at all. He could definitely cause him problems if Murray has an off day, but I doubt that very much, and the odds reflect that. I think Murray's about 10-1 on.
I always think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Murray's biggest chance is the US Open. This is what everybody says. I mean, is that actually true? You've crunched the numbers and you work the stats out for every single tournament. Should Andy Murray's best chance be in this Grand Slam?
He loves the hard courts. He just loves the bounce of the hard courts. I don't think he has got much of a better chance on the US Open hard courts than he would have at Wimbledon or the Aussie Open. It was something he said when he was young. I think it's more to do with him loving New York as a city rather than him having a much better chance on the US Open hard courts.
From a punting point of view then, I mean, would we look for an easy win here against Cilic for Murray? How do you see it?
Normally I'd go for 3-1. I'd expect a 3-1 kind of win. But Murray has been in some absolutely stunning form recently. I didn't stay up to watch it last night, but I looked at the stats this morning and he was reducing Raonic, by far the biggest server out there, to winning 70% on first serve and only 30% on second serve, which is unheard of.
It's fair to say that Raonic is probably in better form than Cilic at the minute.
Yeah, Raonic is certainly in the top 6 or 7 for me, whereas Cilic is between 10-15.
Butler, let's get some prices on this one. We'll get the match odds first of all. I expect Andy Murray's a short price favourite.
He is a short price favourite, and he's a very short price favourite. I mean, Cilic is a guy sort of, excuse the pun, but come on to the tennis team with a bang. Cilic bang, sorry, but anyway. But he come on with a bang.
You'll clean up with that one, Butler.
I know. He come on at Queen's, and he come at the Queen's Championship, and he won the. I'm sure Mark will tell me better. He's much better tennis judge than me, but I'm sure he won the competition at Queen's a couple of years ago, maybe even last year. But his form since then has dropped. I mean, he's had a temperament problem, like all sort of Croatian sports players are going, even a similar kind of role. But Murray has just come on leaps and bounds, and I think he's finally got that monkey off his back by winning a gold medal. And a lot of tennis judges are saying he could go very far today, and they don't see any way this is a banana skin. Now, tournaments gone by, Grand Slams gone by, you see Murray playing these games, you think he might struggle. People remember British guys, English guys, Tim Henman playing in these kind of matches. He would have gone to 3-2 and just managed to get through. Not with Murray. He's a different kettle of fish. Even at 10 on, I think he will win. Not for me, it's not really my kind of price, but certainly on a handicap, Murray minus some games, maybe 4.5 games or 5 games, certainly I think he will cover that spread. Murray will win it. And you know what? I've got a sneaky feeling he could go very, very far. I know he's at the quarterfinals, but I think he could win this competition as a whole as well.
Just speaking of the handicap betting, how does it work, Mark? Because people will look at Mark's handicap prices and wonder how on earth you can bet on that when it comes to tennis. Surely you can only bet on the winner, correct score, set betting. How does the handicap work?
The handicap works, they give what's called a game handicap. So in a match like Murray versus Cilic, it might be Murray minus 5.5 games. That means that for Murray to win his side of the bet, he would need to win by 6 games or more. A tie break 7-6 counts as 1 game. So he'd need to win something like 6-4, 6-4, 6-3.
To make sure that you win on the handicap. Let's take a look at that handicap, Mark. We've got the prices for it as well. Butler.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit higher than 5.5. It's 6.5. Now that is, it's a little bit of a high number because I like having people around about 6 winning for me. So 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 would be a good handicap. Now for Murray to win that, he's got to win 6-4, 6-3 or even less. Now one thing we know about Cilic, he's a big server. So maybe not. I mean, but if he can do what dismantle Cilic's serve like he did to Raonic yesterday, that 6.5 is a big player. But at 4-6, it looks a bit short. I think it's 1 game too high. I thought it'd be around about 5.5 at 6.5 plus 6.5 Cilic here 11-10. I'd have to go with Cilic at 6.5. I really would. I think Murray's got enough quality, but I do expect one of these games, one of these sets at least, to go to a tie break. And I think if that's the case, then Murray's got too much pressure on him on the handicap, and I've got to go for Cilic to land it with a bang at 11-10.
This is the problem sometimes with the handicaps because the players don't care, do they? They just want to win. They'll, Andy Murray would take 7-6, 7-6, 7-6 right now, wouldn't he? He
Absolutely.
doesn't know that we're all trying to back him on the handicap.
No, I think it's more of an issue actually in NFL where they've had some occasions of they call it point spread fixing, teams winning but they're not winning by as much as they should do, taking their foot off the pedal a bit too much. But now in tennis, it's not one of the big liquid markets. It tend to be only a few bookmakers who offer this to any kind of scale, whereas most of the retail type bookies are going to offer these kind of markets but with huge spreads.
6.5, which way would you go?
I'd be with Cilic, like Nigel, both on the game handicap, and I might look into laying Murray on the set betting.
Speaking of set betting, let's take a look at how we priced this one up. Murray beat Cilic 3-0 when they met at Wimbledon. Nigel, what about this time around?
Well, the favourite is 3-0 again, but 1-10 to win the game. 8-15, 3-0. Very, very short. We know he's been dominant. We know he played against Federer, but Cilic is a big server and he's a likeable. He could take a set off him. Murray has had problems with concentration in the past. I remember games where he's won games set 6-love and then lost the next one 6-1. That's changed a little bit now with the Murray we see now, but at 11-4. 3-1, that's got to be a little bit of a bet. I mean, I just can't see the difference. 8-15, 3-0, and 11-4, 3-1, and even 10-1 Murray to win 3-2. Personally, I like the look of the 3-1 and the 3-2 combined there at around about 7-4 shots. Go with the 3-1 and 3-2. I'm certainly back that at 7-4 rather than the 8-15, 3-0. So 3-1, 3-2 for Murray, and I think he will progress, and I think he'll go very, very far.
Split stakes for Nigel. How would you play the set betting, Mark?
Again, I think the value is probably laying Murray 3-0, or betting one of the other outcomes. The only thing that puts me off slightly is the fact that Murray, he's not going to want to muck about knowing that he's got to play. He'd have Federer in the semi-finals and then looking at Djokovic in the final. So that would be a real incentive for Murray to get this done as soon as possible.
You mentioned those two players. Let's just open it out a little bit and get your view on the outrights. How do you see it now? Has anything changed between the start of the tournament and now in terms of your view who might win the US Open?
Not really, to be honest. Djokovic's draw was very easy from the start. He started at 6-4 to win the tournament, due mainly to how easy his draw is.
Because he's in the other half to Federer and Murray.
Yeah, having to place maybe David Ferrer in the semis, who he's never struggled at all with before. And then you've got Murray and Federer, who, in my opinion, might be a bit ahead of Djokovic at the moment, certainly in terms of form. But the draw really lends itself so much to Djokovic that, especially when they play Super Saturday, they both play the semis on the Saturday, final on the Sunday. It just looks Djokovic all the way for me. Yeah,
the action, of course, is underway in New York, but none of the major players when it comes to the men's draw is in action. So the market as it stands at the moment is pretty much right. Butler, how do we price it?
It's been a very, very quiet betting heat, this one. It's all the money's been on the women's, all the money's been for Serena Williams. Can she win it? You know, that's where the real heavy money's been supported. And the reason why is you get to the semi-final stage, quarter-final, nothing changes. These prices were pretty much the same as what they were at the beginning. Nothing really changes despite you're backing a guy at the beginning. But now I think the money will come in. And the thing is, Djokovic heads to market at 6-5. I think he's the only real option. I think he is the value. I think he's the foremost. I think he's got the easier draw. 6-5 there. Federer 9-4. Murray 130. And Del Potro, out of the prices, I think he looks a little bit of value at 14. You can rule out anybody else. It's between the top three and maybe Del Potro at a big price at 14-1. But Djokovic is the favourite and a worthy favourite at that.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a solo to the final, hasn't he, Djokovic? Well, that wraps it up for this edition of the Punter. Good luck with your US Open bets tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more betting advice and analysis. Many thanks to the Bet Butler, Nigel Seeley, and to Marc Blair, our tennis experts in the studio. And from me, Dan Roebuck, it's goodbye, and we'll see you next time.